Liberty in the Face of Adversity in John Milton's Paradise Lost. To speak of a life well lived would be incomplete without the fact of adversity. Adversity frames one's pursuit of knowledge, virtue, justice, vocation, and more, oftentimes more so than the peaceful factors in one's life. Not only must one be able to face the reality of adversity, but also be able to transform adversity into an impetus for creativity and personal growth. Such a task, difficult as it is, and maybe idealistic as it may seem, is epitomized by Satan in John Milton's Paradise Lost, who chooses to view adversity as his new home, fit for his sovereign rule. By embodying the triumph of the will and self-sovereignty, the unlikely figure of Satan acts as an ethical touchstone by which we can reflect on the potential to grow and persevere through adversity. Milton's Satan, and yes, we must keep in mind that this is Milton's characterization of Satan, is a complex character presented as a mixture of abrasive, hot-button emotions and collected, even virtuous, leadership and rationality. Satan is the literary equivalent of the thrill-seeker who bungee jumps off of bridges, thriving on embracing the thrill of the moment and the disturbance of peace, making clear to his fellow fallen angels our joy upraise in his, God's, disturbance. Despite his disruptive attitude, Satan is admired by his fellow fallen angels for the general safety he despised his own, for neither do spirits damned lose all their virtue, showing his willingness to carry the heavy load in the face of challenging circumstances. Satan volunteers to be the leader of hell and venture beyond in the hopes of finding some recourse in a better fate, refusing to accept as great a share of hazard as of honor. The choice to embody noble, even virtuous attitudes in the character of Satan is doubtless provocative, yet it serves as a foundation upon which we can better understand Satan, his methods, and ultimately the reason he has been designed as such by God. This is why I think it is pertinent to address overly dogmatic or rigid notions of Satan, often ones that are interpolated into Milton's writing based on previous biases, such as my classmate Hunter Hallmark's when he confidently claims, "I think that Satan is definitively the villain. There's no way he could be the hero." While this is a tempting conclusion, it is clear that, considering Milton's willingness to nuance Satan as a character, the temptation to reduce Satan to hero-anti-hero is too reductive and would likely detract from Milton's subtle treatment of him. To further accentuate the nuances of Satan's character, he displays a plain and continuous conscientious awareness of the irrationality of his actions and the hopelessness of his situation. One of the pleasures of embarking on Milton's epic journey is noticing the profoundly problematic nature of Satan's existential situation. From Satan's perspective, his very existence, as well as the tumultuous rebellion of Satan's co-conspirators, is a divine puppet show to suffice his, God's, vengeful ire. Satan, through his discourse with his fellow sufferers, comes to confront the injustice of their situation, as they are destined to lose to the admittedly higher foe, God. Voiced in the character of Moloch, but doubtless a sentiment shared by Satan, a reversal of perspective occurs, turning our torturers into horrid arms against the torturer. This provocative characterization of God as a torturer echoes throughout the epic and serves as one of the most important ethical implications of Satan's discourse. The real world is filled with suffering, often inescapably so, but this does not therefore mean life is unlivable. The first step to a well-lived life is the acknowledgement of one's circumstances, perilous as they may be. And Satan does so when he states, "If there be in hell fear to be worse destroyed, what can be worse than to dwell here, driven out from bliss condemned, in this abhorred deep to utter woe, where pain of unextinguishable fire must exercise us without hope of end. The crucial addition of without hope of end displays Satan's conscientiousness regarding his circumstances. Against a superior foe, he is able to orient himself in the reality of the situation and then decide best how to react, showing an attunement to the reality of his situation. As my classmate Michael Hood suggests concerning Satan's readiness to rule in hell, he perseveres through hell in spite of heaven. Satan's attunement, however, often sits on the verge of nihilism, with Satan regularly lamenting the pitilessness of his circumstances. Satan, skulking in the garden, laments, "Ay me, they little know, how dearly I abide that boast so vain, under what torments inwardly I groan, while they adore me on the throne of hell. The lower still I fall only supreme, in misery such joy ambition finds." As silly as one may find it for Satan to view his circumstances disfavorably, especially since the casual reader, steeped in centuries of church history, is apt to view Satan as unwaveringly malicious and active, the reader is enlightened as to the tenuous results of adversity. At one end of the spectrum, one risks letting the reality of adversity go unnoticed, leaving one ripe to be taken advantage of, and become obstinate with regard to one's future possibilities. While on the other, one risks falling into one's adversity to the point of nihilism, an equally irremediable rut. Satan, therefore, occasionally bestows us with a profoundly touching display of his despair at the hands of a destiny that seems to leave little room for any repose or ultimate success for himself. It is tempting, though, to read Satan as intending to actively overthrow God and succeed. My classmate Lauren Gibson says as much when she caricatures Satan, in her own words, as saying, "We are going to be better. We're taking this new reign in hell, and we are going to be better than God." But clearly, this is too optimistic for Milton's Satan. For Milton's characterization of Satan, he is fully aware of his subservience to an immovable divine hierarchy, and his nihilistic sentiments are enough to eliminate this Christianized reading as the last word on the matter. At its zenith, Satan's reasoning appears to conclude in an unredeemably nihilistic state, as he regards, "Never can true reconcilement grow where wounds of deadly hate have pierced so deep, which would but lead me to a worse relapse and heavier fall." What would anyone do in such a situation? Certainly it is obvious that Satan is in a double bind on the most cosmic of scales, which promises no recourse in the future, nay, guarantees eternal damnation. Such an existence predicated upon Satan's sinful dispositions, whose terms, mind you, Satan did not choose to be as such, leads to a form of self-hate, with Satan crying, "Which way shall I fly? Infinite wrath and infinite despair. Which way I fly is hell, myself am hell. And on the lowest deep, a lower deep still threatening to devour me opens wide, to which the hell I suffer seems a heaven." The expression of Satan's quite literal double bind leads Satan, like any sufferer seeking respite, to turn inward. Destined not only to external circumstances that are hell, but also to the state of mental turmoil that is hell, Satan must reconcile with the multiple registers on which hell exists, the physical state of affairs and the mental state of being. In the face of such circumstances, Milton elucidates the hedonistic impulses of Satan, among the other fallen angels, in order to help us learn the centrality of desire to Satan's character, as well as sinfulness in general. An average reader, once again steeped in an extensive history of Christian interpolation of the sparse mentionings of Satan in the Bible, is quick to impose upon Satan purely irrational motives without taking heed of Satan's point of view. While Satan does value disruption, he equally treasures pleasure, be that through war, disobedience, or rule in hell. In the opening discourse between the fallen angels, Satan expresses the centrality of pleasure as his motive, stating that it is their job to know how we may henceforth most offend our enemy, our own loss how repair, how overcome this dire calamity, what reinforcement we may gain from hope, if not what resolution from despair. In this respect, Satan is purposely anthropomorphized in order to serve as a touchstone for that part of every human that desires, and in the mode of a drive at that. By explaining the reasons for Satan's actions, we are faced with the fictional embodiment of a real-life problem, being driven by desire and pleasure, and trying to achieve these aims in the face of oftentimes harrowing circumstances. By reifying all these aspects of Satan's character, we are now able to orient our gaze towards Satan's solution: liberty. In the face of adversity, Satan chooses to respond to adversity by making it his new home. Satan, as idiosyncratic as it may seem, and this has no doubt contributed to the provocative nature of Paradise Lost since its publication, embodies the characteristics of a role model. He willingly embraces difficult circumstances, often to his own detriment, preferring hard liberty before the easy yoke of servile pomp. He prefers the consequences, tumultuous as they may be, of knowledge rather than the blind ignorance of the obedient subject. Building on his previously established conscientiousness, Satan acknowledges that it would be extremely easy to revert to prostration at the feet of God, admitting what could be less than to afford him praise, the easiest recompense, and pay him thanks. Yet despite this, Satan cannot take the easy road because it is unconscionable to him. Mirroring Satan's mindset, Belial articulates the viewpoint that many Christians or Bible-adjacent people may have failed to consider: how wearisome eternity spent in worship paid to whom we hate. This short retort exemplifies the redemptive character of the fallen angels epitomized by Satan. Adversity becomes a choice rather than a threat to be avoided. As such, rather than succumbing to the temptation to submit and become obstinate through peace, he chooses to do the one thing the free spirit is best at doing: choosing mastery of the will and the reins of liberty at the expense of rationality and security, reifying the libertine who wills to act differently.